and we know this is what we're meant to do. So we wake up, put our feet on the floor, go and conquer the day like a warrior, like warriors. Cause that's what a tribe does. We got your back so you can relax and focus on all the important stuff, like getting your business done. This is our tribe. We look out for each other. That's right, that's right. This is our tribe. We help each other grow in business and life. That's right, that's right. No need to panic anymore. We got lots of support and an army of warriors by our side. We fight the good fight when we unite. We fight the good fight when we unite. Cause that's what a tribe does. We got your back so you can relax and focus on all the important stuff, like getting your business done. This is our tribe. We look out for each other. That's right, that's right. This is our tribe. We help each other grow in business and life. That's right, that's right.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are all over the world. My name is Sondra, and I am the host of the Coffee Shop Show. Oh boy, get an agreement words. I am joined by members of the Explore Pro Tech Tribe, and super grateful for that. So our show is to help entrepreneurs run their business smoothly, from startups to everything in between. So we have been talking about finances. We're about to wrap those up. Actually, this is actually the last one. So we've been talking about them since the beginning of April because it started with Financial Literacy Month, and we started with financial literacy. So we will be moving on to a new topic in June, which is next week, which is like crazy, but time flies. So today we're talking about cash flow. And a lot of these topics have been very similar, but yet there's that uniqueness of each one of them, and they build upon each other. So I would tell you to go back to the beginning of April and watch all the way through. It's like 6 shows, because there was a week I was off, so we were off. So it's like 6 or 7 shows. But today is about cash flow. So cash flow, I'm going to read the definitions. This is one thing I've been really wanting to make sure we focus on, is definition of words and not just throw words around, because there's a lot of words in the financial world, and some of them mean the same. Most of them do not mean the exact same thing. So cash flow refers to the movement of cash into and out of business over a specific period. It's essentially the net amount of cash a company gains from its operation, investments, and financial activities. Positive cash flow means there's more money coming in than going out. And of course, negative means the opposite, more money is going out than coming in. So cash coming in can be from sales, accounts receivable, loans, investments, affiliate programs, grants, all those different things are ways that money can come into your business. And of course, going out can be business expenses like office space, employees, supplies, equipment, marketing, coaching, education, and many, many other things as far as outflow. And every industry has their own unique outflow of what needs to go out. Some of the significance of cash flow is what's liquid and what's not liquid. So like some things are flexible and you can liquidate and move things around. And then some things like a piece of equipment, you don't liquidate and move things around. So understanding, and I think this is one thing when I did invest in a bookkeeper, I was like, these are your assets and this is what's liquid and what's not. And that was something that I had to learn because, some things are, you can do different things with different parts of that. So, and then again, we've talked about this many times, know your numbers, at least the basics, what's coming in, what's going out. And maybe if you don't understand all the nuances of that, have a good idea. If somebody says, are you in the positive? Are you in the red? Are you in the black? Are you in positive? Are you in the negative? At least be able to answer simple questions if somebody asked you. Um, by all means, get the experts, use resources. There's lots of bookkeeping software, bookkeeping people, and then you got your accountants and you got your CPAs. Um, definitely know what you need. So I have a bookkeeper. I don't have an accountant. I don't have a CPA. This past year, I did, or at the beginning of the year, I did consult an accountant. Um, no, a CPA. I consulted a CPA just because my income had shifted on what was coming in different types and from different parts of the world. And if you're international, that is very, very important to have a CPA that knows international. Um, because at least in the US, it matters where your money comes from. If it's in the US, if it's out of the US, what part of the country it is, what kind of money it is, and so on and so forth. So definitely having experts in your corner so that you can go to them. She actually said I had a pretty good grasp on what was going in and what was going out, and that I didn't really need to hire her, and she'd be there if I needed her. And we kept going. I was grateful that my bookkeeper was able to. She keeps things in line, but I knew what my numbers were, and I could tell her exactly what my questions were. Like, this is coming in from this type of income. I knew what was coming in, so I could ask those questions. And only take 5 minutes versus paying for an hour service or 45 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever. So she's like, oh, those are your two questions? You're good. Here's your answers. Move along. So, but if I didn't know my numbers or even how my numbers were coming in, I couldn't ask her those questions. I would have been like, go talk to my bookkeeper because I don't know. So it's super important to know what's coming in, what's going out, especially as an international person, which I don't know. A lot of business owners are, of course, in the world today. And then in the United States, we have a whole set of other things going on right now that affect businesses directly or indirectly. Like, I'm a service-based business, so I don't necessarily rely on physical things from physical countries. So I don't have as much issues with, or don't have as much of an effect on my business. But, people that make products in the US right now are very much struggling with all the different things going on in the world. So definitely knowing how that affects you and everything is important. Peter, come on in.
Awesome. I think cash flow is an interesting topic for me. I hate spending money. I like hoarding money. I like to keep my money. Watching the flow come in is great. Watching the flow go out is excruciatingly painful. However, I don't think you can really say you're an entrepreneur unless you've actually experienced like a real crunch. Something goes wrong. And when something goes wrong, you need to jump, change direction, be flexible. And in order to be able to do that, you need to understand what affects my money coming in and what affects my money going out. And what of those things can I control and what of those things can I not control? If you have an understanding of what are the things that affect my cash flow coming in, and you hit trouble, like all of a sudden you miscalculated something, you need cash flow in. If you understand what affects your cash coming in, you then understand where to focus so that you can actually fix the problem. The cash flow is something that you can manipulate, but please don't play God. You can manipulate it, but be very careful. Things like day-to-day cost, keep it separate. Keep it separate. That's what it costs. It's fixed. You have that money has to be put aside. So don't necessarily include. I mean, you need to understand where that money's come from and what it's going to. But you can't exactly take from that money and put it towards something else because it's part of your daily cost. It's something that your business requires to run. So I think the gist for me would be each business is unique. You as an entrepreneur will understand your business better than I will understand your business because we all run different spaces. So you will know your space better than I will know it, better than Sondra will know it, or better than Lesetja would know it. Because it's your space, you've built it, you understand that space. Take the time to figure out what affects my cash in, what affects my cash out. So in an emergency, um, you need to pay for something, but you don't have the flow out, or what affects that? Why? And because you know your business, you can focus on that and you can turn that situation around. Or what affects my cash coming in? I need cash coming in very quickly. But what are the things that affect that cash from not coming in? So, but then you know where to focus. And I think it's about being precise. When we say cash flow, it's not just about, oh, I understand the numbers. My business has money coming in and money going out. It's more than that. So um, there needs to be like a broad spectrum understanding, so that when the poop hits the proverbial fan, you know what steps to take next. Um, Knowing Sondra, she's got a document as to what step to take next for exactly if this happens or exactly if that happens. Um, but not all of us are Sondras, so and we can't be Sondras. That being said, it really does pay to have somebody that really understands the finances in your business space and somebody that can communicate that to you if you are not doing it yourself, because you need to understand that space. And the nice thing about professionals is that they are professionals. They're in that space for a very particular reason. Now, for instance, I would make decisions in my business and I would go to Nestine, and Nestine would be like, it's a great decision, but you don't do it like that. You do it like this, because if you do it like that, then you're going to lose here. But if you do it like this, you're going to gain. Her being a chartered accountant and a registered auditor has an understanding of the financial space in its entirety. But there are, in every trade, tricks. In every trade, there are tricks. We as laymen or people that are, we're just entrepreneurs, we do our thing, we don't necessarily know all the tricks. A lot of us will learn them over time and we'll become well versed in business. But there are entrepreneurs out there that are just great at sales, but not good at controlling finances. So never underestimate the power of bringing in the right professional to do the right job, because you can save yourself a lot of headache. Peace out.
I have to chuckle because the reason I learned to document was because I did not do it that way in the beginning. So live and learn, live and learn. And um, finding a business credit is a good thing. And I learned about it, but I did not learn about managing it right away, the right way. So like you said, playing God, like, oh, I have a sign of credit, so let's go do X, Y, and Z. And I've learned my lesson, and I've seen multiple people have big issues, including bankruptcy, because they didn't, because, okay, I got X amount, so I should be able to go spend triple that and all that thing. So, um, even if, you get, I don't know, you have a great 3 months, but that's your peak season, and the rest of the year you're not in your peak season. So how to manage that money to cover those non-peak seasons. In the US, it's changed a lot, but a lot of educators do not get paid unless it's the school season. So that off season, that summer or whatever, they have to do different things. Now, a lot of schools have changed that, thankfully, but it's lowered their pay throughout to even it out, it's lowered their pay. So they had to deal with that situation, at least in the education space. Um, but same way with it's Memorial Day, so a lot of pools are opening right now, and all those type of things are starting to open, and all those things, and those are seasonal, especially in Michigan. We're done by the beginning of September. So again, if you're a seasonal job, definitely knowing your cash flow and knowing what your peak season is. And peak season just means that's your higher earning season. Again, if it's seasonal because of weather, or seasonal because you sell Christmas decor, or seasonal because you know, clean snow, or do roofs that you can't do in the winter. So just all those things can be seasonal. I'm thinking of Hendrik, who, if it's rainy season, that might affect his cash flow if during the rainy season. Even here in Florida, same thing. Rainy season, construction doesn't go well until after that 2-month period. So all those things affect your cash flow. So it's not just about money, but it's also about knowing your trade. Like you said, knowing your industry, knowing your trade, and knowing people hire coaches at the beginning of the year when they're setting resolutions and are, all into it. They're not usually buying in December when they're focused on Christmas and all that stuff. So knowing even your service base, like when our service is highly sought after versus when they're not, and I did health coaching for a while. So yeah, beginning of the year, that was the time to bank up on those clients because you were going to help as many clients as possible. Beginning of summer, same thing. Fall, not so much. Everybody's like, okay, we're past it. So definitely knowing the season of your industry is so extremely important. And if you document it, then you do know that. You know, as a coach, hey, I'm probably not going to get as much in the last quarter of the year. So I need to really go hard the first, second, third. So that last quarter, I'm not paying bills or I'm not paying employees or whatever. So knowing that is extremely important. So that's a really good point. And again, documenting it and going to the experts is very helpful. And experts doesn't mean hiring the highest paying CPA in the world. Do your research on that, like who is good at what they do, but doesn't mean it has to be good at what they do means they charge you hundreds and thousands of dollars to do it. So, or get yourself in a great community like Explore Pro Tech and use your resources in that or other communities. And there's definitely different ways to do that. My bookkeeper's a barter. It's been a barter the whole entire time. I have no desire to change it. She has no desire to change it. We're still bartering 3 years now. So it's a win-win for both of us. And she's had some health issues and it's worked perfectly for her because we help each other out and we move on. So it really is about you knowing your resources and finding them for sure, for sure. Mr. O, come on in.
Hi, good evening, Sondra. Good evening, Peter. I'm probably going to repeat quite a lot of what you said. But I think where I want to start it off is what Peter mentioned, knowing your numbers is extremely important because if you do not know where your money comes from, where your money is going to, you're not going to be able to operate your business. Away from business a bit, let's just go to people that are employed, that are working. On the 20 or the 15th, 25th, 28th, 30th, or last day of the month, you're going to get paid. You know exactly what you are going to have to pay. You know exactly what groceries you need to buy. You know how much you must put into reserves as a saving. So you know all those numbers. You cannot be surprised by a municipal account because you know every month it's there. So your salary is your money coming in, and all other expenses, it's your money going out. And then you've got a bit of cash left. Well, hopefully, unlike me, you've got a bit of cash left that you can then, you've saved your money. I think that's where we start first. Save your money before you start spending. And then you've got a bit left to say, well, where can I put this? What can I build with this? And that's where other savings plans come in and stuff like that. So it is very important. And when the bonus time comes, Christmas time comes, most companies give you bonuses at Christmas, or they give you an extra pay, or all of those. Now, what do we do wrong? It's Christmas. I go out and spend all of it, forgetting that January is coming, which is your dry month, which is what you were mentioning, Sondra, that you need to know your seasons. You know December is peak season for you because you've gotten your bonus, you've gotten your whatever extra pays and all that. Now, Do you reserve some money for January? And January is the hard month because then it's schools, it's all those expenses that you pretend to not have known of, whereas you know about them. So when in business and you've got your peak, your high peak and your low peak, you know exactly. I mean, you would have done the study. You would know, when do my products move? If I'm selling ice cream, I know that ice cream in summer moves. In winter, yes, it can move, but it's very slow. So what do I do for me to be able to sustain myself throughout the winter months when cash flowing in is slower or is lower? So you plan that, and you know exactly what you need to know, exactly what you're going to do. So that is why I started off with knowing your numbers is very important, because if you don't know when is your high peak for your income and when is your low peak for income, or your high peak for expenses, cash flow out, and your low peak for expenses, you would not be able to balance throughout the year. And that's where your company is going to be in trouble, because you will not have stock of things that are needed during your high peak sales. We need stock, you don't have. And now what do you go and do? You go and borrow money. And because you're borrowing as a matter of urgency, you take any interest they charge you, because you which one can give me a better interest? You don't have time for that. So you take in money whenever they say to you, well, we need it at 30% interest. You say yes, because you are looking for that cash injection. And that's going to get you into trouble, because you didn't study your business, you didn't study your cash flow in and out, you don't know your market, basically. So what we spoke about a few weeks ago, it's research. You need to know exactly what is happening with your business throughout the year. When is it important for you to stock up? And when is it less important for you to stock up? Or when is it important for you to stock down, because you know your stock is not going to move? And I can give a whole lot of examples of products that you know they have got seasons. So let's just know what is. And Sondra, yes, the other thing that you mentioned, what is cash flow in? Or what is the cash flowing in? Where does it come from? The source. Where does it come from? If you know where the source is, and you know what you are going to pay, you're going to pay out, then you're able to balance. You're able to grow a business because you will always have reserves. So it is very important to know your numbers, to know where your money is coming from. I think we've spoken about sponsorships and all that 2 weeks ago. So you need to know where your money is coming from so that you can apply it well. If they give you, and I think we've seen this with, let me call them entrepreneurs, where they get, and I think even with people that win the lottery and stuff like that, you get such a huge cash injection, and because you haven't planned for it, you just go and blow it. And then 3, 4, 5 months later, you're poorer than when you didn't have money before, and when you didn't win that lottery. So it's very important for you to plan, research, know where it's coming from, and what you're going to do with it. Thank you. This is Lesetja Mokou from Litmok, your business development agents.
I love that. I love that. And yes, a lot of the things we're saying are going to be repeated, but one thing I did that you did mention, I want to highlight, is knowing when your expenses are going to be high. So my first quarter is higher. It's when my web domain is due. It's when my uh, LLC is due. Like my first quarter is just a higher, usually that first quarter you start a business, it's always going to be your higher month because it's usually your renewals and it's all those things. So knowing that I divide it, by 12, but I don't know that until after that first year or whatever. But as soon as you can figure out like, hey, this is going to be a higher month or a higher quarter or whatever, like you were saying, I need to stock up for the Christmas season. So maybe July and, August, I'm purchasing a lot more, so I have stock. So how am I going to offset that cost? Because I'm probably not going to get paid till December, with the money. So knowing those things as much as you can ahead of time by researching, by asking people in your industry, say, hey, like I sell this, you sell this similar thing, when is your higher cost versus your income and things like that. So knowing that, especially when things are not something that you sell all season long, or all year long, is important. But like I said, even in the service industry, you have costs and they renew every year. Insurance, websites, licenses, taxes, all those things. So knowing when those are due and when you have to pay those, so you can either save or break it down into monthly payment, like monthly payment. This goes into this account. I have one for taxes now. A certain percent every month goes into tax holding so that I have an account when it's time to pay taxes, that it's there. And as it took me a couple of years to start doing it that way, so I didn't have to scramble at the end. So knowing that, and you don't necessarily have to have a separate account for every single thing, but having one maybe off to the side that you don't touch for those seasonal expenses so that it's there as you add into it. And it's a whole lot easier to add 5% a month versus paying out the wazoo in the same month is kind of what I looked at it as. And that's working for me, knowing 5% is not a big deal, versus the big bill all at once out of whatever I happen to have in the bank account, is a lot less stressful, in my opinion. And a lot of business people teach that too. And that's actually how I learned it was, put a percent every month towards that cost versus trying to pay it off in that quarter or whatever, is a lot easier and makes more sense. So knowing what you're paying out, we've talked about knowing what you're coming in, knowing what you pay out and when is it due. So if you have Canva and it's due in October or November, November is another high month for a lot of people because people do the Black Friday sales and including myself. So November is another high month for me of expenses because that's when everything renews. So knowing that is important, so that I know, hey, this one is this much, this quarter is this much, November is another one because of software renewals or whatever. If you pay yearly, it's not pay yearly and forget it because it's going to come back around, especially if you don't go take it off or close it out. So it's extremely important to know that as much as you can for the whole year versus that quarter or even that month or even that week. So Peter, come on in.
I just want to mention two things, and these two things can actually bolster your business and help you survive. One is cash flow forecasting. So when we look at forecasting is it's based on records. It's based on what's been recorded, data. You have recorded over a period of 2 or 3 years, or over a period of a few months, or over a financial year, but you take that information and you can then utilize that information to predict what is going to happen in the future. Once you have an idea or an understanding, and let's say an idea or an understanding, because it's not set in gold. Just because it's been forecast does not mean that's exactly what's going to happen. There are so many elements, outside elements, that have to be in control for it to happen perfectly. But you can use your forecasting as a general rule of thumb, and you can predict what's happening in the future. If you can predict what's happening in the future, you can plan. If you can plan, you can save. And that leads us to building a cash reserve. So building a cash reserve is important because if you can get your business to a point where you have predicted the future, you've utilized that information to plan so that you can build in a reserve into your business. So now you've got a cash reserve. That reserve gives you the ability as an entrepreneur to make decisions that you couldn't usually make because you don't have the cash to back it up. Money talks. Money talks. You see wealthy people walk around and everybody jumps because the money talks. When you are an entrepreneur, you need to make a decision and you need to back up that decision. You need to have the money to back it up. In order to have that money, you need to have planned to have that money. It doesn't just happen by itself. You have to plan everything. So get into the habit of collecting your data so that you can actually forecast, so that you can actually plan, so that you can build your reserve, because that reserve will save you. It'll save you in the times of things went horribly wrong and cash in is not what it should be. I have a reserve and I've covered myself, but I can still plan to get out of it. And let's use as little of the reserve as possible. In my mind, I think that a cash reserve in a space should be capped. And it's almost like if you use from that reserve, you need to plan how you're going to get it back in so that you always have it. You can't just go, oh, don't worry about it. I've got a cash reserve. I'll just take my cash reserve and throw it at the problem, because then you don't have a cash reserve anymore. You know, it's like owing somebody money. I'm going to borrow money from somebody, but I know full well I have to pay that money back. So unless I have a plan to pay them money back, then I shouldn't borrow it in the first place because I can't afford to pay it back. So if you can't afford to pay somebody back, don't borrow money from them. It's the same in your business. That reserve, you can't really think of it as your money, but you can think of it as your backup. You know, it's got your back. It helps you with decisions. If you take money from it, plan on how you're going to replace that money, which you can do because you can take all the data and you can forecast and plan on how you're going to do that. But I just think it's vitally important. A lot of people just cash in, cash out, cash in, cash out. No, there has to be some form of safety net in there, but you've got to plan for it. You can't just, cash in, cash out is that's just the daily running of your business. But you need to look at the entire life cycle of your entire business and how you're going to survive. And you don't survive on just cash in and cash out. That's not how you survive. You've got to know your numbers. You've got to have reserves in place, and you've got to protect those reserves, and you've got to plan around those reserves. And at the end of the day, it's all about looking after yourself and what's in yours and your business's best interests. So build your cash reserves.
I love that, Peter. And I think if we think about investors are more likely to invest if you have a cash reserve, like these are my operating costs. This is how much is going in reserve. This is how much will be a profit at the end. If you know all those numbers, not just in and out, because I'll be like, oh, that's great, but what happens if you get sick or your equipment breaks and you have to replace the, the big machinery that costs, not very, very little money. Or if you are driving in your car, if driving is part of yours and your car breaks down or something, like what will you do in those cases? That's part of your business. I'm thinking like Lyft and Uber in the United States. If your car breaks down, you're kind of out. You're out. Like there's no ifs, ands, in betweens. So definitely having that reserve can show that you are thinking smart, and that that life. We were just talking for the show. Life's going to happen. The roller coaster life is going to happen. So you can't necessarily always control the roller coaster, but you can control whether you get flipped out of the roller coaster. That's the best I can say about that. And on the live show, people are talking about, vehicles, when your license renewals, your tax renewals are due. So think about those things that you pay on a yearly basis, for sure. Or maybe you go to a conference once a year and you always want to go to the conference, but you wait until, the last minute to buy the tickets, last minute to travel, and all those things. But if you know about it, then you can plan for it. I'm thinking of, I have one in October and I have one in December, and I'm thinking about them now, not October and December. I didn't go last year to the December one because it didn't get announced until a month before. And I'm like, I don't have 30, I don't, I didn't have like a reserve enough to just go on a travel in less than 30 days with a ticket, an airplane, conference ticket, airplane, and the hotel. And um, people got mad at me, but I'm like, I don't have that. Like, I don't keep that kind of reserve just to be like, okay, let me drop that in. Would it have been an investment in my business? Yes. Was it going to pay me to be there? No. Like physically was not going to give me money in that moment. So it wasn't like I was going to put the reserve back in there. So I chose not to go. And I had to make a decision based on my cash flow, not the people around me who were like, oh, just do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, yeah, no, that is not the way I flow. I've been in business way too long to know that those last minute decisions can cost you in the long run. Now this year, I know it's in December and I can save and figure it out between now and then. So a good question, Mr. L. Cash flow versus profit. So cash flow is the money going in and out. Profit is the money you have after you paid all your expenses. So that's cash flow is literally the flow of going in and out. So the net cash flow is what is left. So yes, net cash flow can be the difference or profit too. But yeah, cash flow is basically in and out. So come on in. Is that was your question? I seen it on the YouTube, so I was addressing that.
No. That's the question I just asked on YouTube while you were speaking. But I just wanted to give another example of planning and knowing of the year, or knowing when is your high tide and low tide. I used to be in the milk industry, and in winter now, there's a huge shortage of milk. Okay. I don't know if it's still happening. Pira, in the Western Cape, you probably will guide me as to whether the farmers are starting to charge higher because it's winter now. But we used to have those instances where we would know from April onwards, the milk supply is going to be a bit lower. Now, there were resellers, my clients, of course, that from April onwards, they start ordering a bit more just to build up some reserve stock so that when winter is in and there's a huge shortage, they still have got milk to sell. They planned it so well that every year I knew this one in March, I'm going to be getting an order to deliver in April. This one in April, I'm going to get an order to deliver in May or in April. This one has got a huge conference, whatever is happening, and they will need this milk. So they need to order a month before. So they plan it so well. And what they do, they don't just order, they order and pay for it because they've reserved the money for it. They know we need it. If they don't pay, I may not be able to satisfy their order because I'll then start looking around as to how many customers have ordered and how can I balance them out. But if you have paid, I've got to satisfy your order. So that was very, very smart of them to do that at the time, knowing that winter milk shortage. So let's rather build up stock. And I mean, knowing that your UHT milk has got an expiry date of 6 months. You can pack it in and still be able to sell it 3-4 months later, which is still good. So that's just another example that I wanted to give in, just to show how entrepreneurs out there do it, just to make sure their cash flow is steady, even during the low tide. Thank you so much, Sondra.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example, Lesetja, because if you know that, you can plan ahead and still it's less stress. It's just less stress when you do it that way. Um, but entrepreneurship is not, I always say it's not for the lighthearted. Like there is stress involved. So if you can take the things we're teaching and apply the lessons we've learned, some of us the hard way, um, I think that's part of my mission is to help people not have to go through that. You know, can I take all your stress away as a business owner? No. Can I help you probably not make the same mistakes that I made or give you some tips and tricks to make it a lot easier to get through? Yes, that's my goal of the show is to teach people how to be a smarter entrepreneur, you know. And I love my super creative entrepreneurs that own multiple businesses, but what sometimes gets them in trouble is they don't pay attention to those details. And then 2, 3 businesses in, they're closing because they should have stayed with 2 or 1. And that went 2, 3, 4, and 5. So, but if you got a grasp on all those, yeah, I do know people that successfully run 4, 5, 6 businesses. It's doable, but you gotta know your numbers, you gotta know your resources, you gotta know your industry. There's so many factors in that. Not just you're super creative and you want to do all the things and conquer the world. Ambition can only get you so far. It does not pay the bills. For sure. For sure. Peter, come on in.
Yeah, I think as entrepreneurs, and a lot of people around the world are quite disillusioned with what entrepreneurship is. People think, oh, I'm just going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to be wealthy. Well, on the journey to wealth, it's a journey. There is a whole process before you can turn around and go, oh, look, I'm wealthy. You don't just become an entrepreneur and then you're wealthy. There is a whole journey in between. You have to take that journey, and you have to plan for that journey, and you have to survive that journey. So part of that survival is a lot of what we've been talking about, and is understanding your finances, understanding your cash flow, understanding your money in, your money out, understanding your environment, understanding the businesses around you. And I think one of the things that you can do that can positively affect your cash out, if you are in the space where you have suppliers, then building relationships with your suppliers gives you the ability to negotiate your cash out. It's not just a simple thing of, I run a business, I have a supplier, they supply me, I pay them, I supply my customer, I get paid. It's not as straightforward as that. If you have a relationship with your supplier and you've built trust with them and you negotiate, can I pay you over 3 months? Can I pay you over, can I make a payment plan? And all of those things positively affect your cash out. And the less cash you have going out, the more you currently have at the time because you're paying less out. Maybe it's spread out over a period of time and it's more manageable. But those are some of the tricks in the space of being able to look at your finances not just as money in, money out. There is an element of control that you have because you can negotiate. And if you can negotiate, or if you don't know how to negotiate, learn very quickly because if you want to be an entrepreneur, it's a skill you're going to have to develop. And suppliers are people too, and you can build relationships with your suppliers. So utilize that relationship, negotiate with that relationship. You can negotiate costs. It's not just, oh, it costs this. Okay, but what if I'm buying more than one? What if I'm buying 20? What if I'm buying 500? Now we're negotiating. Now you are in control of that space and you can negotiate. Now that we've set a price, how much time am I going to pay you over? Can I pay you over a period of this amount of months? Can I pay you a period over that amount of months? And all of that is what you can do to positively affect your cash out. Obviously, it's a whole lot more complicated than that, and there's a whole lot more to it. That's just one aspect of it. But life is not set in stone. It's not. Just because they say that's the price doesn't mean it's the price. And just because they say that this is when we need to be paid doesn't mean that that's how they need to be paid You can negotiate. It's not set in stone. So build relationships with your suppliers. That will positively affect your cash out. These are just small things that you can actually do to positively impact your business. Yes, let's say negotiate. Negotiate.
I respect that, Peter, but you also have to build a relationship on respect. You can't just say, oh, I have a relationship with you, so I need to negotiate with you, and you should do X, Y, and Z because I did X, Y, and Z. So, yes, build a relationship, but also be respectful that you're both running businesses. And just because you are besties or you've become friends does not mean you are you have to give them a different price, or you have to get, so there's the give and take in that. That relationship is definitely an amazing thing, but also don't be like, oh, if I go build a relationship with, the farmer, I'm gonna get the milk for free. It just doesn't work that way. It's still a business accusation. Yes, am I friends with my business people? Yes, I am. I really am. And I'm very, very, very much about relationships. Anybody that knows me can tell you that I can get myself in trouble with that too at the same time. I've stayed in business partnerships that I should have not stayed in because it was more about the relationship than actual business, and it was a toxic business relationship that I should have took me a long time to walk away from because I'm like, oh, I care and da 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 da, and caring does not pay the bills, and caring does not pay my mental health. So, if you're in the people business, especially service-based, yes, it definitely can. But you still have to remember you're in business. You can't save everybody, especially people that don't want to be saved. That's a whole different story. But we're at the end of our show. So, like I said, we are wrapping up financial literacy, financials. We've talked about cash flow. We've talked about investors. We've talked about pitches. We've talked about so many amazing things in April and May. Yes, we did it over a 2-month period. So go back and watch those shows and let us know. Did we miss something? I'm sure we missed something because we could talk about financials for a whole year, but we're not. Our show isn't just about financials, it's about business entrepreneurship as a whole. But I did spread this out over 2 months on purpose because it's important. It's the backbone of your business. Money is the backbone of your business. I don't care what you do. There's money involved. You can be a nonprofit. There's still money involved. You can, there's still some type of money involved in some way. So yeah, that's why I wanted to do it for 2 months, just to try to approach it from different views. And I think it's not just about numbers. Yes, we keep stressing about knowing your numbers, but it's not just about numbers. It's knowing where, when, how, and why. Basically, all of that. How they function, why they function, where is it going, how is it going, and everything in between. So definitely grateful to you gentlemen for joining me today. I am Sondra. I am the owner of Get It Done. I help you with getting your goals broken into bite-sized pieces in an action plan, hold you accountable, and tweak the plan as we go along. We also want to give a big shout out to Susan. Happy belated birthday, because her birthday was this last week. That does our show notes. She does our show covers. She does turn it into podcasts on Spotify, and everything in between. So thank you so much, Susan, for that. And Mr. Peter, do you want to take us out?
Awesome. I think the way of the world is changing, and understanding how to run a business can be life-saving. So what we're talking about is necessary, and creating a support space for people that want to do that is necessary. So if you're in that space, come get the support that you need. We are surrounded by incredible people. Sondra, you're absolutely amazing. Lesetja, always good to have you in our space. Absolutely brilliant. And with that being said,